All right, so after we've done this annotation, now we're going to work on the connotation format. I have different formats available for the entire year. It will be on page 28 is what we're going to use today. It says infer connotation. I know it's kind of tiny. I'm going to zoom in so you can see it better on my screen. But this is how my formats are set up. So I just want you to take a look at this really quickly. So for this format, for anything that is written in like the black font, those are things that you have to write in, like that you're going to write the connotation of. And then it has something in blue. It says word or phrase. And so if it's in parentheses and it's in a different colored font than black, you have to make the choices what goes in there. Okay. So that's just kind of how this works. I'm going to go through this and you guys are going to follow along because we're going to use part of, or a phrase, in the Witch and Wizard prologue and write that on page 33. Okay, so there's a lot of flipping and moving around because everything's in one notebook. So I'm going to try to not move too fast, but that's just kind of what's going to happen. So I'm going to have you go along with me. If you need to pause because I'm going too fast, feel free to do that and then just hit start again and you'll be good to go. All right, so in order for us to do the connotation format, I have to look at my annotation and I have to choose a word or a phrase that stuck out to me that was very negative. So I'm going to use this one over here. I'm going to box it in pretty darkly so you can see it. So I know that's the one that I chose. And I'm going to have you do the same thing because you're going to practice with me. All right, so neck snapping deaths. That's has a very negative connotation. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to look on page 28 and I'm going to use this format. Again, everything that's written in the black font, I'm going to write down no matter what. So at the very beginning, it says the connotation of. So on page 33, which is right next to the annotation, I'm going to write down and start using the format. So I'm going to say the connotation of, okay? So it's coming directly from this format. So I'm going to turn this back. Again, I apologize, but this is just kind of how this works. Then over here in the blue parentheses, it says word or phrase. Well, that's the word and phrase that I just got done boxing in. I chose the phrase neck snapping deaths. So I'm going to write that in right next to the connotation of. So I'm going to write the connotation of, and I'm going to put it in quotations because I'm taking it directly from the passage. Neck snapping deaths. Okay, so all I did was write down that word or phrase that I chose. So I'm going to go back to the format. And it says in black font, in this piece is. So I'm going to write that in next because everything that's in black font, I'm going to write word for word. Okay, so I go back over here. In this piece is. Okay. All right, so then I go back to the format. And in red font, it says positive, negative, or neutral. So I'm going to choose one of those. So neck snapping deaths, I've already chosen that it's very negative. Okay, so I'm going to write down next to this is negative, period. So that's my first sentence. Okay, then I'm going to go back to the format. And then in black font, so again, it's in black font, so I know exactly what I'm going to write. I know because the author is talking about. Okay, so I'm going to write that down as my next sentence. What did I say? Okay, I know because the author is talking about. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go back to the format. And it says in green font, situation. All right, so I'm going to go back to the actual text for a second because I need to figure out what is the author even talking about. So I have to use the context. So I have to kind of see what's going on. So I'm going to just read this just to see what's happening before and after, just to make sure that I understand what the situation is. All right, I see my brother Whit, handsome and brave, looking down the platform mechanism, calculating if there's any way to jam it, some means of keeping it from unlatching and dropping us to our next snapping deaths, wondering if there's a last-minute way out of this. So the situation that's happening, because up here I talked about hanging, is that they are on this platform, and they have it was up here. Where is it at? Okay, right here. So ropes around our necks. So it is hanging. So that's my situation. So that I'm going to write that. I'm going to talk about what it is. So it says, I know because the author is talking about, how do I want to say this? A family with ropes around their necks, getting ready to be hanged. Okay. Let's see. Did I do that right? Oh, no period yet. All right. So that's the situations. That was what was in the green font in the format. Okay. Next part. In black font, it says, which is usually. Okay. So it's in black font, so I'm going to write it. Which is usually. Okay. And I'm going to go back. Again, if you have to pause, you can. In that orange font, it says a positive situation or a negative situation. I already said it was negative, so I'm going to say the same thing. So is usually a negative situation. And then at that point, that ends my sentence. Okay, so now I've done my second sentence throughout this format. All right, I'm going to go ahead and go back. I have one sentence left. And in black font, it says, therefore, I know that. So I'm going to write that. It's in black font. Therefore, I know that. I'm going to go back to that format. In blue font, it says word or phrase. So I'm going to write my word and phrase again. I am going to use the quotations. I chose neck, snapping, deaths. Okay. And back to this format. Is in black font. So I'm going to write is. I'm going to go back to this format. That was just one word, I know, but in red font, it says positive, negative, or neutral. I've already said it's negative, so I'm going to write negative. But I'm going to go ahead and look at this. It just says in this piece. So I'm going to write down, because it's negative in this piece. So I'm going to write that down, and I will be done. It's negative in this piece, period. And at that point, I am done with my connotation format, and I have explained it. So I'm going to read it, because it's always good just to reread what you wrote down to make sure that it makes sense. So it says, the connotation of neck snapping deaths in this piece is negative. I know because the author is talking about a family with ropes around their necks getting ready to be hanged, which is usually a negative situation. Therefore, I know that neck snapping deaths is negative in this piece. Okay, so we did that one together. What you are going to do is you are going to do another one, and you're just going to practice by yourself. So you're going to go back to our annotation. You're going to choose a word or a phrase that is negatively connotated. I'm going to have you practice the whole negative connotation to it because, again, this whole prologue was very negatively connotated. So you're going to choose something that stood out to you that had a negative connotation, and you are going to practice using the format and creating something very similar to this. And you can use mine as an example, but that's your next step. Awesome.